Welcome back, everyone, to Athlete Enlightened right here on Riot Radio. So today we're going to be talking actually about an overarching concept of fitness, which is strength. And I feel like something that is very pivotal to note just starting off is that typically we look at strength in just like one dimension of like, oh, physical strength and like, yeah, the ability to, get stronger and overcome your plateau. Yeah, that's great. But strength has so much more to it than just those factors of like, okay, well, now I can lift more, or, I haven't put on weight or lost weight, but I'm still stronger. I could still like push more. I could still do more. I could still overcome obstacles. But there's more to it than that. Strength, I feel like, translates into everything, including your mentality. So when you look at something, let's say, for example, like some obstacle you encounter in life, let's say like you want to start a business, but you don't know how. Strength is going to determine what your ability is to pick up the necessary qualities in order to achieve that end goal. So it's essentially an ability to adapt to something. And that's really the defining factor that separates strength from power, which is something that a lot of people get confused about. Power is something that is innate to your character. It's something that typically it's less changeable than strength is. Strength is very malleable. You can almost think about these two like the difference between the elements of earth and fire, right? One is just innate, it's structured, it is what it is, it has that innate grounding power in its nature. And fire is something that is very agile and has the ability to create a lot of heat, a lot of energy, but it's very you could say volatile in a sense, right? It has the ability to fluctuate a lot more than power does, right? So this is the key difference between understanding power and strength, and these are important for the topic that we'll get into today, which is how do we apply strength? How do we apply it beyond just the gym? We're going to start by looking at some of the examples we see with the gym and basically use that as an analogy to elaborate on what is strength, not just in this one dimension, but in all the dimensions that we encounter it. And through this, we can really improve our routine, especially in things like exercise. However, realizing that strength is something that goes beyond just this one dimensional of, oh, well, I can use in the gym, but nowhere else. No, that's not true. Strength is something that you have in all the aspects of your life, and it's the ability to overcome an obstacle. So with that being said, we'll go into the first picture now. And here we could see a bit of a breakdown of some of the things that, strength in terms of the gym typically relates to. And we're going to focus a bit more on the mental aspects. You see cognition, you see mental health. What else do we see? Physically active lifestyle is kind of in between. And the thing is that one of the things to keep in mind is that as a human being, as a creature of nature, you essentially, in your very nature of your being, have all of these attributes attached to you. So your main objective should be, how do I increase these so I can be the most capable person I could possibly be, right? And when it comes to the gym, this is pretty important because we want to make sure that, okay, well, we're not doing some exercise that's going to snap something up, right? We want to make sure that you're performing the exercise to the best of your ability, and you're getting stronger, and you're doing it correctly, and you're able to translate that into everything else you do. And you have all these attributes now in your arsenal that you can use for the rest of life, right? So, and like it even shows here, the effects of strength on cognition, the effects of all these things on various aspects of the human body is not just physical in nature. Your physique and your mentality are linked as a human being. And your goal should be to emphasize drawing that out to its fullest potential, because like I've said in the previous episode, it's kind of absurd how, we might go through life and not think that, okay, well, if I have this tool, this body, which is, creating the divine image. How can I use it to its full potential if I don't know how it works, right? So I feel like part of the journey is, how do I use the tool, right? And I don't know if I said this last week, but I certainly mentioned it recently. It was a quote from Abraham Lincoln, and he said something to the effect of, if I had to chop a tree down, I'd spend the first few hours just sharpening the axe. So I would say that is really drawing a conclusion to the point that your focus should be on utilizing and wielding that tool the most efficiently it can possibly be used. Because if you find that, the axe is too dull to chop the tree down, or this is taking forever, right? Because you didn't learn how to wield it the best you possibly could, it makes the endeavor harder, right? I'm not saying shy away from hard things, I'm saying quite the contrast. But you want to be somebody who is smart, right? We always talk about in things like martial arts how to be a smart fighter, not just like walk into punches blindly. Sometimes that's part of the sport, it's the name of the game, right? You get hit, whatever. But the goal or your vision should be to be as efficient a fighter as possible, if we're drawing an analogy to martial arts, right? So the concept behind what I'm elaborating on here is that you should use all of these attributes that you acquire from getting stronger and building strength in the gym to make yourself more capable, because then that will translate into every other thing you do. It'll translate into, like we see here, cognition, translate into your mental health, it will translate into your physical aspects, such as, we typically talk about muscle building, strengthening the muscle fibers in your body. There's a whole, process around body recomp, which is essentially that you're recomposing the muscle fibers in your body. So you're breaking down the tissue and you're rebuilding it stronger, but you're not necessarily in a phase of cutting or bulking. You're just in a state of maintenance where you're basically refining those muscle fibers so you can become stronger without actually putting on any weight. So this is pretty much the process which I am currently engaged in perpetually, because I'm at the point in my journey on a fitness level anyway, where I don't feel the need to get bigger or try to lose weight or anything like that, right? So for me, it's just about getting stronger and not necessarily adding weight as a main goal. So when I do exercises, I have strength in mind, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't incorporate some of the things you find with other types of training, but just be clear on what your directive is. We talked about this in the first episode. Mentality is big to any goal that you want to achieve. So when your main focus is, okay, well, I want to get stronger, you should be focused on strength, right? As simple as that, right? So if your main focus is aesthetic, one of my friends, she's a fitness model, and she constantly does exercises that are specifically for aesthetics, right? She won't do exercises that are not in that routine, and that's because she's training for a specific thing, right? So for me, I'm training for strength, right? I don't if aesthetics come, they come. If they don't, well, I mean, I'm me. So of course, you're going to reap the benefits of your training hard, right? So, and the thing is too, I was talking about this recently with some people actually in personal training, is that the concept that you should have behind this stuff is that you are aiming to essentially evolve yourself to such a level that you can get that clear vision of what your goal is. Because a lot of times when people start off with the gym, they'll have, I want to, get aesthetics. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to do X, Y, Z, whatever, change my diet, get in better health, whatever. They have a lot of goals. As you start to progress on your journey, your goals become fewer and fewer. I was talking about this with actually one of the producers last week, that, at some point, actually it might have been the week before last week, but that over time, your training becomes more about maintenance and keeping up the physique that you currently have, because you've already achieved every goal that you want, right? So it's about now maintaining that. How do I train hard enough to not just actually maintain, but maybe stay at the same weight and improve my strength, right? So, and strength is something that I wanted to emphasize. This is very much linked to your mentality. Strength is the ability, essentially, that, say, for example, you're going for a lift that you haven't gone for on bench yet, right? And essentially, when you go for the lift, you're like, oh, well, I don't know how many reps I'll be able to get. You might be thinking this in your mind somewhere, right? And you just have that on your mind. Okay, well, am I going to be able to get 8, 12, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the reason why you have this is because it's the first time performing this lift or reaching a weight that you don't know if you're going to be able to complete the full set of at that point in time. Strength is the ability to gear your mentality to, okay, well, how do I frame this in my mind so that I can be successful? And one of the tips I gave you guys, and like I believe this was the first episode, is get excited about the challenge. You should not want to shy away from challenge. You shouldn't say, oh, this is too hard, I'm incapable of doing this, because you're deducting energy from yourself before you even start, right? It's like, how can you win when you don't have any confidence in yourself before the battle even begins, right? So the main point you should be focused on is finding a way to make it engaging enough to you, or exciting, or correlating it with some emotion that drives you achieving that, right? And not factoring in all these doubts and stuff, because those are emotions too. And the thing is that you want to make sure that you're in a spot where all your emotions, all of your body, all of your consciousness is on your side. Like, how can you succeed going up against, nature or other people if your own energy is not working for you? It doesn't make sense, right? So the basis behind this, the very fundamental aspect behind this, is that strength is linked to mentality, because strength is the ability to frame things in your mind that you're going to overcome an obstacle, right? So it's the same. One of the reasons why I think even strength and speed are so correlated to one another is because speed is the ability to overcome other forces. If you think about it, when something is leaving the atmosphere, it basically has to reach a certain speed, right? Or for something to glide over the ground or move without restriction, right? How does a plane fly through the air? It does so with speed, right? How does a rocket escape the atmosphere? It does so with speed. How does a bird fly? Like, obviously there is aerodynamics in all these things, but the factor is speed is present, right? And, there's obviously a medium around that, but in any case, the thing is moving fast and it's able to defy another force, that being gravity. Gravity is like power, because power is a constant force that is always there. It's typically unchanging, so you can almost think of it, power, and a lot of times is somewhat in correlation or related to your innate physical mass or ability to exert power from that mass. So the ability to exert force from your mass or in correlation with your mass. Strength has nothing to do with how much you weigh. Strength has the ability to overcome a certain amount of force against you. So the thing is, one is inherent and one is changing. And that's why I always go for strength, because strength is really determinant about who do you want to be. And that's why it translates into all these other elements, right? Like, the element of mentality, the element of being able to cultivate willpower, right? So all of these qualities that might seem subtle or mundane in nature actually relate back to something that you can acquire in the gym. So this is what I said, being a human being, your physiology and your mentality are linked. And that doesn't mean that, everybody is going to have the same road to that, right? Because again, strength is about you overcoming a perceived obstacle in relativity to you. So let's say you're somebody who is nervous to speak on air, right? And you go and do it anyway. That is building strength. Is building strength of character for one, but it's also strengthening your ability to vocalize your opinions and your voice on that subject, right? So, and speak clearly, speak succinctly. All of those are emphasis on what you derive from getting stronger at that thing. But the basis is that you need to have that internal strength, that inner strength, that fire within your will, within your soul, to overcome that obstacle in the first place, or have the desire to do so. There's somebody who'll see a challenge when you go and do something that's difficult. There's somebody else out there who will be like, oh yeah, this is too hard. I don't think this is for me. It's time to pack up, go home, whatever, right? But there's somebody else who says, even though it's difficult, it doesn't matter because I'm still going to do it anyway, right? And this is why Goku is such a beloved character in anime, right? Because he doesn't care how strong the opponent is. He just wants to fight and wants to get stronger, right? And the only way he's going to do that is by fighting strong people, right? So encountering strong things, right? And overcoming those obstacles. So the point is that character trait is so beloved by people because it's not something easily attained, and it's something that is constantly ongoing process. So it's not something with an end in sight. And this is why, typically this video will not resonate with people who are not really, locked into the gym, because for the sole purpose that it takes a certain type of person, a certain type of mentality to even be receptive to that level of strength, right? So how do I make this something that is relative to me? You do so by basically going out there and doing things that you want or want to achieve, and even if they're difficult, you find ways to overcome that, and through that you're building strength of character, you're building mentality, and even things like this that relate to it are stuff like you develop over time, like philosophy, right? Philosophy is a way of cultivating a certain mentality around something so it can support a holistic worldview. So anyway, that is the concept, the kind of mentality around strength, and how your perception of the exercise in the analogy of using weights will determine whether you will be able to lift that weight or not. So, and I shouldn't have to tell you guys this because you probably have experienced it firsthand, that you go to do an exercise for the first time, maybe it's just like a higher weight on the bench or something, and you don't achieve it because you're thinking, oh, I don't know how many reps I'm going to be able to get, this might be hard, blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes you're in a really excited mood and you're just able to lift it, right? Or you're not paying attention to how much weight is on the bar and you're able to lift it. Or you see your gym bro who you're working out with and he's able to do it, and you say, okay, well, if he's able to do it, I could do it too. And then you do it, right? So it's the same concept, is cultivating that mentality that relates into your strength, because if you don't believe you can do it, there's a saying that the person who does not believe that they can do it and the person who believes they can do it are both right. And the point behind that is that you have to decide who you want to be. Am I going to be the guy who overcomes the obstacle, or am I going to be the thing that the obstacle just crushes, right? So it's about, who do I want to be at the end of the day? Do I want to be the guy? Do I want to be that guy? Do I want to be that good? Do I want to be the guy who can hit 2 plates on dip, right? On dips. So do I want to be the guy who can eventually get to 3 plates, right? If that's you, then you are tapping into that fundamental aspect of strength. So just for reference again, I'm weighing in at 115 pounds here, and I'm hitting 2 plates on dips right now. And that's not good enough for me, so I'm trying to get to 3 plates at some point. But in essence, I just broke through that plateau a week or 2 ago, and I'm already looking for the next level. And that's the mentality that going after strength really gives unto you. It gives you that ability to say, what is the fundamental concept behind this thing that matters to me? Because if it was just for the concept of oh, do this one time to impress somebody or to prove something to somebody, it's a very shallow reason that won't get you very far. And maybe it's something that is like a one-time thing. But if it's something as fundamental as I want to become stronger, period, and then it's a never-ending process, never enough, right? So even today, I had to demonstrate some feats of strength actually to just be able to get here and do the show on time. And one of the important things I would say is that be that person who can keep those commitments you make to yourself, right? And this kind of relates to this aspect of mentality in the truest form, because you realize that if I say I'm going to the gym today, I have to go because the words have come out of my mouth. And because they came out of my mouth, that means that they're spoken out there. So, and if you do not go, then you have the image of yourself as, oh, well, I can just let myself off the hook, whatever. And you will continue to repeat that behavioral pattern and other things. It's not simple as, oh, well, I just didn't feel like going to the gym, so I just didn't go. No, if you're not going to go to the gym, don't say you're going to go to the gym, right? If you're going to go, go. It's about the same thing as I'm talking about with strength across all these dimensions. It's that strength relates to every single thing you do, and it's your commitment and conviction to something. And one of the things I've said, even yesterday on some new content we're actually making, is that it was a quote from one of my relatives, my uncle, and he said this to me once, and I always remember this. I probably quote it more than he does at this point, but he said to me that you never like go to the gym and look back and say, I wish I didn't go to the gym that time, right? Never have I once ever said that. Oh, I wish I didn't go to the gym. Because but you always feel the opposite. If you say, oh yeah, I plan to go to the gym, and you don't go, you don't feel, you feel like a loser, right? So, but that's the key point behind that. You feel like a loser because you told yourself you were going to do something and you didn't follow through on what you told yourself that you were going to do. The first person who stands as witness when you say something to anyone is yourself. So, though you might be able to lie to some people and say, oh yeah, I went to the gym, in your soul you did not go and you did not fulfill what you said you were going to do. And whether you like it or not, your consciousness, it records that, and it will say, oh, well, yeah, we let ourselves off the hook that time, so it's fine to do it this time, and, it's okay, it doesn't matter, it's just one day, and you'll find a way to make excuses about things. But if you're really after strength, it's about, I said this, I have to do it now, right? So the words have escaped my mouth. And once you commit to a mentality like that, especially around things like going to the gym, it doesn't have to be in every single thing you say, but it has to be in the important things, right? There's a quote actually from a success coach that I really like, and it said that when you're planning out the level of importance of priorities to tasks you must accomplish, it should be first things first, second things not at all. And what that means is that the most important thing on your list should be the thing you do first. Everything else is peanuts. You shouldn't be focused on it if it's not getting you to your overall destination, right? So, in essence, that's kind of the mental aspect around that. We'll pull up the next image now, and we'll kind of move along a little bit. Can we get the next image up there? Okay, so here we see kind of the list of strengths and weaknesses. So, and I just put this for reference. I'm not saying this is a list of end all and be all. I use this as a reference to kind of elaborate on bigger concepts, right? So here we see strengths: collaborating, communication, technical expertise, problem solving, adapting, quick learning, detail-oriented, and time management, positive attitude and brilliance. So, or maybe it says resilience. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is that the overarching concept behind this list, I'm not going to read out the weaknesses because you should only really be focused on the strengths, but in essence, it's meant to, the reason I put this up, it's meant to detail a contrast list of all the ways strength can be applied into your life. So if you're after strength, it doesn't just stop with, oh, I went to the gym, now I'm stronger. It's like, okay, well, how can I apply that strength in the other areas of my life, right? I want to create my business. How do I get strong enough? How do I become capable enough to start my own business? And how do I put that into motion? Well, I have to be strong enough to be able to manage more stress. I have to be able to take on more tasks. I have to be able to do more things in a shorter amount of time in order to ensure that everything on that list is done. I have to, like I was saying before, you have to keep promises to yourself. I will finish, or I will do X when I finish X amount of work, whatever. Or I will do Y when I finish X amount of work, whatever. And the basis behind that is that you are cultivating that accountability, those structured results that you can basically say, okay, well, like, now we have achieved this, and now next time I will do the same process because it's proven to work. And you will be accountable. That's accountability right there. That's saying, okay, well, I said I was going to accomplish, X task on my to-do list. I accomplish X task. And then when you check it off, and you don't have to do this physically, I do this in my head most of the time, is that after you do that, you feel a sense of, okay, empowerment, right? Especially for guys, this is so important, especially because your hormones as a guy are linked to what you take action on and accomplish. Testosterone, the main guy hormone, is supposed to make effort feel good at its most fundamental essence. So when you do hard stuff, you will be inclined to go do more hard stuff because it makes effort feel good. And let's not forget, in terms of health, wellness, and fitness, testosterone is key in muscle building, right? So there's a whole bunch of actually goofballs out there at this point in time who are like taking, steroids and TRT, especially a lot of young guys doing this on like social media for like attention. They're like attention wannabes, right? So like, but it's all artificial testosterone, right? The thing is, you should be cultivating it through natural means because that helps you be a well-rounded human being overall. If you're taking testosterone and steroids to thirst trap on Instagram and TikTok, you're a goofball. There's nothing more I need to say about that. In essence, though, I'm going to digress from that. The point is that you should always be focused on the most natural ways to improve whatever hormones you seek to improve of the efficiency of in your system. So if it's testosterone, if it's about making effort feel good, if it's about building stuff, if it's about gaining strength, if it's about improving your mentality, if it's about becoming a more responsible and accountable individual to yourself, then that's something you should look into, right? So this list is kind of just an outline of that. This is what happens when you work on stuff. This is what happens when you do not. All right, maybe we'll move to the next image again and see where we have left to cover. So yeah, so here we have like it's relating to, it says mass gain or hypertrophy. The main thing I wanted to emphasize from this is the concept of strength and power. And like I said earlier, power being something that is almost similar to potential energy, and you can think of the quality of strength being something is more connected to kinetic energy, which we'll actually elaborate on near the end of the episode. So if you want tips around how to get stronger, stick around for that, because I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. But check out what it says here. So strength training, This is the ability to keep volume fairly low, blah, 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 avoid unwanted weight gain, right? So it doesn't say blah, 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 but, you know, you get my idea. In essence, though, you can see here on the mass side, too, it's saying spend time training for hypertrophy, switch it up a few times to break plateaus. So that's what actually some people do who are trying to put on weight. They'll switch up their style of training from strength to hypertrophy, or, you know, strength to a more power-based routine. For me, I don't care about putting on size. I want to get stronger. That's it, right? So I really relate a lot to the middle category, and this is just a general, like I said, overview. This is not something that I created myself. This is just something that I found that elaborates on the concept we're talking about here, with basically the difference between strength and hypertrophy, or strength and power. So, and the main difference is that, one, you're not putting on or changing the innate physical quality of that thing to a degree, and the other, you are changing the innate physical quality of that thing, right? So strength, like I said, it's more mental. It's more, okay, well, how do I feel today? Do I feel like I'm able to lift that heavy weight that I did last week? Do I feel like I'm able? Do I have the ability? Do I have the strength, the willpower to do those 245 plates on dips that I did last week, right? So, for example, actually, you know, just recently, like I said, I broke the plateau and hit 2 plates on dips, right? But just the other day, I was able to get 4 reps, right? So before, I was only able to get 3. Like, I was doing 1 plate for 12 reps before, and I went up to 2 plates, and I can only do 3. Yesterday, I did 4. So that's an improvement, right? And the thing is, too, remember this when you're training, guys, always. It's not about training your ego, because the productiveness to your ego will come over time. But if it's always about proving something to others, you'll never grow as, like, the strength you actually really want. So it's about really knowing who am I? Do I have that validation inside of myself to get me to that next level? Do I understand fundamentally that I should pursue strength simply because I want it, for no other reason than I want it, you know? And that you should do that because it's your instinct, right? And that's what lets you basically soar over those plateaus, right? It's about your mentality. It's about that strength. So I hit 4 reps because I wanted to shatter the limits, right? I wanted to push myself, see how far I could go, right? Maybe only improve by a little, doesn't matter, right? Remember, like, what this man Goggins said. He's like, you know, when you try something that's really hard, most people have not even attempted what you're trying to fail at, right? So it's about really understanding that your evolution is your evolution. You don't have to prove anything to anybody else to get some kind of validation from the world, right? You have that within inside yourself. It's about bringing that out and being honest with who you are. Did I train hard today? Yes or no? Did I go to the gym today? Yes or no? Am I keeping on my routine? Yes or no? These are all yes or no questions. Though the brain and consciousness is a very complicated thing, half of it operates in black and white. It operates on left and right, operates on and off, like a switch on a wall. And, you know, the other half of your brain is what determines what is being expressed. But realizing that there's a part of your brain, the masculine part of your brain, that is generally just based on this thing is expressed, this thing is not expressed, that is what fundamentally determines what actions will be present in the outside world. So focusing in on that, you can see why action is so linked to mentality, because the things that you do, they influence how the body functions, they influence your ability to overcome an obstacle, overcome, you know, even things like it's said on the previous photo, improves like various forms of health, bone structure, you know, immune function, blah, 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 right? So in essence, though, Strength is something that translates into everything. It's a fundamental force, you can almost think of it as, right? So, like I said, it's like talking about power and strength is like talking about the elements of earth and fire, right? One is grounded and innate in its ability, and one is adaptable, agile, and able to become whatever it needs, right? A lot of times too, you might think of the idea that strength is almost like a heavy sword, and it's your ability to hold up that sword. If you've ever watched my podcast Moonstruck, if you haven't checked it out, check it out on the link below. I will link it to the description of this video, and I encourage you to check it out, especially if you're into consciousness and science and spirituality, all this stuff that I previously talked about on my other show. But if you are familiar with some of my content, you will know that I trumpet anime sometimes. And one of the key points you can even see a theme like this in is the show Inuyasha, right? So I don't want to spoil too much, but a part of the series is that his sword gets broken in battle, and he has it repaired, but it's now forged around his fang, which is not to the power yet of his father's fang. And the point is that he must go and prove his strength by defeating an opponent that his father fought in battle, and essentially best this opponent to be able to make the sword lighter. And the concept behind that is that strength is your ability to hold up your sword. It's the ability to, my sword is heavy because I haven't cultivated the necessary mentality or the necessary aspects or qualities that I need to be able to lift such a heavy sword. So I must cultivate that mentality, that strength, that willpower in order to make the sword seem lighter, right? Or maybe it's not even that it seems lighter, maybe it actually is lighter, right? Or you're somebody who's more capable of wielding it, right? So strength has a weird connection like this with the external world. And you even see this in, like, they always talk about, a mother lifting a car off her child, right? How do they do that, right? So it's about where is it derived from? It's derived from a place of what is the mentality that I need right now in order to do this thing, right? So, and most of these people are not pro weightlifters or anything like that, right? They're just random mothers who are in a situation where they require a certain ability, which in this case is strength or the ability to lift something, and they cultivate it in that moment because that's what the body demands, right? So there's a certain point where almost physiology takes over, right? And it says okay, well, you're not able to do this on a conscious level. Let me take over, right? Because it understands the task is I need to save my child, right? So, the woman will be able to lift that car, right? But like I said, they're not necessarily all, pro athletes all the time. Some of these people probably never seen a day of training, but the point is that they can do it because that is the aspect that is demanded from them, strength. And strength is determined on what? Is determined on your mentality. And it's fluid. It's almost like it's beyond even water. It's like fire. It's like a malleable flame, right? So, and it's there, boom, in that moment. Maybe we'll go on to the next image, actually. So here, relating to this concept of this almost like explosive form of energy, that being strength, we could see this is a demonstration or a, let's say, outline actually for people approaching strength training for running, for example, right? So you see the stability phase, which we can somewhat ignore, and then you see the strength phase, then the power phase is last. And I just want you to look at basically what is defined here as the types of training that is associated with each phase. So during the strength training, let's see what this is there. Yeah, I can't really even read it because it's too far away, but like it says like lateral movements. The point is that it's more based on agility, right? And it's more based on movement. It's more based on speed. It's more based on energy quick. How can I get from point A to point B, right? It's like tossing out your jab, right? So it's about all that happening fast. Power phase, it's more about how do I slow down, get that hypertrophy? How do I put building blocks together to build a structured foundation? If I was putting together, or if I was let's say the creator of the cosmos, and I was putting together a mountain, what qualities do I want to have with it? I want to have foundation on the mountain. I want to make sure that it's anchored or rooted or tethered to something like the ground. So this is like basically the difference between something like, a mountain and like, like some element of nature that is really malleable in its form, almost like a wave, right? So it's like the difference between those two things, right? So in one sense, you have something that is really based on foundation, and that translates into an inherent quality of power, and one that's built on the ability to constantly adapt to something and express itself and overcome a certain amount of force. So both are overcoming force, but they do so in different ways. And this is the thing I really wanted to emphasize by the difference of strength and power. In essence, we'll move on to the next slide, and I think this is actually, where we have the graph. So I told you I'd give you a tip later. This is the tip. So here we see speed, then speed strength, then peak power, then strength speed, then maximal strength. So we see strength and speed kind of outlined a bit differently on this diagram, but the basis is that if I was performing some kind of exercise that was inherently difficult, the way that I would approach it is by utilizing all of that explosive energy from the very start and treat it like almost like if I had super speed and I was trying to run up a building, I would run just as fast as I can, right? So how much speed is needed to overcome the gravitational force, right? As fast as you can run. Same thing with exercise. When you're getting that weight off the bar, how much force do I need behind it? As much as I can muster. So especially if you're training for strength or training for power or any of these things where you're really pushing yourself to the limit, this is the mindset that you should have around this. It's an exponential curve. If you've ever taken math, then you should know what an exponential curve is. It's a curve that only goes up, and it only grows more and more and more in terms of its value in the y-axis as opposed to x-axis, which typically the y is emphasized by whatever you're measuring, and the x is measured by time. So you really want to compress the amount of time that power is being exposed in, right? So it's boom, that stuff is happening quick, right? Quick, everything happening fast. So, and this is why, in so many sports like martial arts, people say, oh, speed kills. Yeah, speed kills because, boom, if the punch hits you and you're not looking, or, you get hit by a punch that's just at the right angle and you didn't expect it, then, it's going to hurt, right? And also you're generating velocity, which we have here on this diagram, which is correlated with force, right? So it's about all of that stuff happening fast. The difference in power, you can almost think of it like the difference between fighting somebody who is like very quick and has a lot of power behind their punches, or I should say a lot of force behind their punches because it's happening fast, and a person who is just really heavy and hitting you even if the punch is coming slow, it takes a lot of force. And why is that? Because both are forms of force, but they're expressed differently. One through power, one through strength. Or speed as well, right? Strength or speed. As I said, strength and speed are correlated. You can see it in this diagram. I would say they're arguably very, very similar, if not indistinguishable from one another in certain circumstances. In essence, though, building that translates into everything you do. It translates into, like we said, mentality, translates into what you build, what you do, how you view yourself, your ability to overcome obstacles, what your values are. A weak person cannot, I have a saying that you cannot train somebody who's like weak to basically be strong if they're not committed to it, right? I'll see sometimes people ask me in the gym, oh yeah, or like come up to me and be like, oh yeah, that exercise is crazy, lifting that amount of weight, whatever. And me, I'm just like, so it's whatever, right? Like, it's what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to get stronger, right? So there shouldn't be any kind of thought to it. There's not any kind of thought to it. Yeah. So the basis behind that is that you should do that thing inherently, right? It's not something that should even be a question in some sense. So when you do that repeatedly, it becomes part of who you are as a character. So this is the same thing like anything else, right? I always say, you didn't jump in the car and know how to drive first time, right? You had to practice it over and over. You didn't jump on the bike and know how to ride the first time. You didn't jump in the gym and get muscles the first day, right? All of these analogies basically stemming to the fact that what you practice becomes an integrated part of your personality. Why do people call themselves fighters? Because they've been fighting for years and years and years and years, right? And they practice that art form. Now they're a fighter, right? So same thing with anything else, right? If you're an artist, right? What makes you an artist? Oh, well, the fact that I've engaged in this for this amount of time and I've progressed in it, and now it's an integrated part of my personality because I express it in every aspect of what I do. What makes me a podcaster? I'm constantly podcasting no matter what I'm doing in my life. I'm constantly creating content. I'm constantly attempting to build new projects. I'm constantly networking with people, constantly always doing things that relate to that concept, which then becomes an integrated part of who you are. So strength and speed are really important because it's almost linked to also this concept of alchemy, which is the ability to integrate and change something inherently within yourself. And this is why a lot of people say the biggest potential you will ever have for growth in your life is when you're at rock bottom, because it's only up from there. So when you're at the top, when you're rich, when you have everything you could ever want, you're not motivated to do jack, right? And why is that? Is because you have everything, right? You don't perceive a threat or a need to change or a lack or something that you do not have when everything is easy, right? And that's why a lot of people, if you're watching this and you're saying, well, I'm not in the shape I want to be right now, I want to be better, I do want to do this, then how do I do that, right? How do you do that is just show up every day. You show up, become a little bit better, little bit better, little bit better, and before you know it, you're ahead of most people, right? Because most people do not want to do that. If something's hard, like I said earlier in this episode, if there's something that is hard, there's going to be somebody out there who does not want to do that, and that's where you get the advantage. Because, this thing is hard, good, because that guy's not going to want to do it. In essence, though, I would say that is kind of the basis behind this concept today of strength. If you did enjoy this, I would strongly encourage you to like and subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell down below so you can stay up to date with all our future episodes. Let me know if you enjoyed this concept. Give me feedback in the comment section about maybe what you enjoyed and what you would like to see in the future. Like I said, speed is something that is transformational. Strength and speed is something that is transformational and relates to you becoming that more capable individual. Basically, rising from rock bottom to whatever pinnacle you want. You need that necessity for change to be present in order to do that. You need, like, I'm not saying that you want this situation to basically play out like this, but you need to be in the situation where the car is pinned on top of your child to be the mother who can lift it, right? You need to have that circumstance. You need to go to the gym and lift things that are heavy to get good at lifting things that are heavy. You need to do that in order to build that mentality, which will then translate into every other thing you do. So like I said, this is the end of the episode. This is Athlete Enlightened. I encourage you to check out my other channels, Moonstruck, which I will link in the description below, which has been picked up by Rogers TV, so check that out. I also encourage you to check out my other channel, Sword of Mercury, where you can request content around specific topics. So just leave that in the comment section somewhere on a video, and I will try to make a video on it. Remember to stay up to date with me on social media. I will link all my links in the description below. Like I said, please help support the channel, because I'm here just to share this advice and, assist you guys with all the information that has helped me, because you guys ultimately are on my side in the fight if you are watching this. So, I'm out.